Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. And everybody, if you're not here, let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And coming out of some lessons, and in truth, it wasn't even technically looking and listening to a thought leader, though the main character in the movie, and it was more of a documentary, a true documentary, a true story of a lady who was telling her life story in photographs and videos she had taken through her adventures and her experiences. And, it's how she took off to the Yukon and built a cabin and lived out there and survived out there. And right. And her experiences of going from city life to that wilderness life and the breakup of her marriage and remarriage and right. This enmeshment that we have in our lives that we just can't get away from. I have them myself, and I have parts of me that are knowing that, they've been with me all my life and they're part of my makeup. And, a lot of these amazing adventures that I do go on. And if you haven't been to my main channel, right, go take a look at some of that content. It's not all mindset, it's not all moving forward and working in emotions. It is in that experience for myself of this life, right? Taking my piece of the pie. And I am taking my piece of the pie. And you could go into that main page and go, oh my goodness, these are her big adventures, right? But that's only through your own eyes and through your own perspective. And this is how, we find people that have our common interests and we build foundations of respect and friendships on these things that we mutually have in common. And each one of us is a unique, and each one of us should be that individual in building their own adventures, building their own life. And your life should look totally different from what you're going to see if you were to go on to my main page, right? But we're all moving forward, right? We're all taking in, hopefully, optimistically, the lessons that life have to offer. If nothing else, resilience. There's a good one because I'm waiting to see. I'm waiting to find that person who's living that fairy tale perfect life, right? I think for most of us, if not all of us, we are supposed to just move along and have that resilience and find those small joys and experiences in our life that make it so that the next time we're around or the next experience that we have the tools and the experience to better handle that, to better evolve, to better do it next time, to make a little bit of movement, be able to get to the point where you can make these kind of realizations yourself and start creating the best human being you possibly can, right? But we beat ourselves in where we don't know, where we don't have those answers, and we don't spend enough time moving, right? And of course, we don't want to move aimlessly, right? We don't want to move aimlessly and just keep bumping into walls because that doesn't serve us, right? As well as it could. It still serves us, but as well as it could, because if we had that guidance to say, don't bump into that wall or watch that corner, right? We can avoid those little hiccups along the way. And so grateful, right, for the experiences, the conversations, the relationships, right? My YouTube creators that puts me in a position, right, where I can just Google whatever content that I'm interested in learning, right? And I try not to be, I have a curious mind, to be everywhere's And that's why I say explore the inside and the outside. But the inside and the outside, right, is an infinite amount of experiences and lessons, right? And we can get sidewinded by all of that. Okay, Sydney, let's bring it right back, right? So grateful for this job, right? That allows me to be able to have this time each day just to apply to myself, right? To make a little bit of movement for myself. And I'm grateful for the time that allows me that I can come in here and share the little bit of an experience that I had. Not necessarily a lesson because this might not resonate with everybody, right? But I do believe in just having these conversations and just right feeling it out, feeling the topic and the curiosity as to the topics that we do hit on, right? That it's going to take us somewheres. This week we had this word kindness to munch on to. It's an important word. It was a word that I've made so much movement, right? And not necessarily movement in my emotional and lesson growth, but it was a lesson in itself because I recognize that in kindness, right? Even when that unkindness and those pushes would want me to push back or not turn the other cheek or right just to give up or cave in or right go ahead and do whatever I was told, but inside my mind I'm going "Rah, rah, 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 rah," like this all through it without whistling while I work. And these are just lessons, right? But this particular lesson was the buffer, right? It took, right, once I practiced the kindness, it kind of buffered all that uncomfortability around me to the point where, right, something was able to seep through, right? Seep through. And I just like, are you kidding me? Right? And just munch on that, having a curious mind, just being open and willing. And right, sometimes it is in those painful moments that we have that we're just pulling at any string just to, right, not to give up, right, not to fall. And that's how it happens. But how it happens for each one of us is going to be totally different. And that is one truth that I've come to understand, right? But how amazing is it when you get to that point where you recognize that you were your worst culprit, that in practicing, right? And it is a craft because not always do we feel kind. I tell you, when I was told we worked through it, but I felt that it wasn't part of me because I hadn't practiced it and it was alien to me. It was something that I didn't take into consideration, but in practicing it, right, in my day to day, in my interactions, in my customer service, right, in those amazing, interesting characters that come across my path, and I go, why is this happening? And not being able to uh, get away from it because something's telling me to say it came across your path for a reason. And in that reason, you just have an experience, you have a conversation that might change your entire insight, or better yet, change the entire insight, right? Or feeling of that person's moment in their day, their week, their month, their year, their life, right? And sometimes, most often, we're not even going to know how we impact people, right? My family is very, very private that way. It's in our programming to be private that way. But in each moment that we have, when somebody crosses our path, right? And it's not necessarily look at somebody every time they come across your path that's a project, but recognizing in that moment, because you might only have a couple of moments, how could you best, right? That person took a moment to stop and say hi and see how you were doing, or just walked by you and smiled, or complimented your good customer service, or recognized when you were kind to somebody, right? that it's in those moments that we get a chance to impact, right? That buffering, that kindness does for us to help us not have all those aggravations and all those little catastrophes and heartbreaks and right aggravations come at us, that we're able to have that little bit of space to possibly absorb the next lesson, right? I move along, right, by kindnesses. It's right. It's not a mission statement, but it's a way that I've lived. Part of it is in that programming, in that this family is private, right? Don't do the ask, right? We can manage it on our own, right? A lot of it is in that, but a lot of it is in that realization that, right, I'm no good to myself unless I can keep that cup full, right? If I can keep myself happy, right? And I entertained myself. It was not technically a movie, it was no stars in it or anything. It was the actual people who were telling the story. It was more documentary, but oh my goodness, I was just like, this is amazing. But it got me to thinking because I love Mother Nature, I love the outdoors, but I love being around people. And she went up where there's nobody besides grizzly bears and, right? Maybe polar bears. That's how far she went. That couldn't be a personal existence for me, permanent existence for me, because I do love people. I need to be around people. I think a part of the what I have to contribute is that ability to make these conversations more normal than what they are when you first hear about them, right? But I think that's only in our minds that we make them bigger. I do it myself. It's why you find me lots of times. I dance around subjects so you can see where my insecurities are in that. But we're working on it and we're getting better and better all the time, right? Better and better all the time. I show up here and I go into my own lessons. Oh my goodness. I went into my lesson last night, you guys. I hope the sound is a lot better than it was yesterday. I I had a pair of Logistica speakers that I got from my laptop, and I had them on, and I think they were reverberating in the conversation that we were having in my podcast. So I made sure that they were unplugged. They were unplugged today, so hopefully it's a little bit better today, right? I would say forgive me for right ruining. Now there was a I thought it was pretty decent. I didn't finish it myself, you guys. So I'm not taking offense if anybody just made it halfway. I'd be surprised if you made it into 10 minutes of the video yesterday. But it is a process. I am a process, right? And and again, going back to this movie that I watched today, this woman, even out in the wilderness, even out in where she wasn't around other people, where there were no lessons, she was her own teacher, she was her own mentor, she was her own parent in that, and she came to her own discovery of choice and change, right? And she knew change is so important in our lives because it helps us to be able to stand on our own 2 feet, or at least have more options and more tools on our belt that make it a little bit easier. If the floor were to fall out underneath you, right? And or underneath me, right? And I had to go up to the Yukon, think I might be able to build a shelter. I would know how much meat I would need to get me through the winter and when my last opportunity to get the meat, right? Right? I would have survival skills that even though I'm out there by myself, there's a possibility that I might survive a winter in the Yukon. Why? Because I took a lesson, right? And that lesson wasn't a thought leadership lesson. That lesson came within something that was supposed to give me food for thought, but gave it. gave it to me in a way that it was my interest. That was kindness, right? And she doesn't know that she did that kindness for me, right? Because it's how we present it, right? It's how we present it. And I hope there's right people out there who enjoyed the way I present the lesson, right? But we get lessons in all different ways. And I've come to experience that my entire life. And that movement, if it's meant to come, right? Right? Just keep moving. Just don't sit in your haunches. Don't just give up and cave in, right? Because that'll only turn you into a popsicle if you're up in the Yukon all by yourself. Okay, you guys, that's it for kindness. We're going into the weekend 100%. I am putting everything I have into that job that puts the roof on my head, that allows me to do what I'm doing here. Very grateful for that job. Very grateful for what it does to me, too, right? Because it makes it so it pulls me away and not to go, because Cindy is curious, right? Cindy is curious. And, with that little bit of mush mush that I do to myself sometimes, right? I can push myself too fast and too hard. And when you do that, you only miss out on the lessons, and you only miss out on the biggest lesson of all, right? It is in the creation, right? Of this life that we're creating, right? And in doing that, we have to create the best human being we possibly can, so that we can share that with others that are kind of hanging around. And I hope you come and hang around with me tomorrow. Hope that sound is a little bit better. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. And we'll see you Monday. If you want to pop into my live on Sunday night on YouTube, we have Chatters Live. We have wonderful, fun conversations, a little bit lighter than this, if that's possible. Well, and I'm only saying if that's possible because I understand, right, that it's unique characters taken in my content, and I'm optimistic that right, they're feeling me out in what I'm bringing to the table. Okay, you guys, see you Sunday on YouTube, or see you back here with Chatters with what's my good cheer on Monday, where we'll be picking a new word. And that's Mondays are always fun. Okay, you guys, have a great day. See you tomorrow on Instagram on Saturdays.